Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today we're looking at the Cobra Condor Z25. Uh, so, this was first released back in 1989. It included the pilot Aero Viper. The Cobra Condor was also available in 1990 and 1991, where it was unfortunately discontinued. So, nice version or nice picture of the Aero Viper version 1. And it was from the 8th series of G.I. Joe, the 1989 line. And it was exclusive with the Cobra Condor Z25. So, here on yojo.com, we do have some wonderful views of the plane. Uh, Looking at it, it is a kind of heavy bomber in a way. Now, this was actually meant to separate. So I'm sure that we're going to get a view or two of that here in the pictures coming up. And because of that, we do have a dual set of landing gear in the front, and we have the wheels off to the side, as well as a set of landing or wheels here in the middle. Uh, the purpose of how this separates is kind of mind-boggling because for me to look at it and just see it this way, because your engine is actually running through in one direction, but the moment you separate, suddenly now the engine has to kick into gear the opposite way, and somehow you're going to have another engine on the front of the plane which isn't really there. That gets kind of confusing to me. Just being honest. Now, this is a bomber, has an internal bomb bay as well as four, say, air to air missiles. Uh, so we get to see that. And we also get bombs in the wing. So, however you want to view that, I don't know if you would want to say that we actually have a bomb bay in the wing as well as being there in the central fuselage. Uh, that would really be up to you. And if it is that way, I'm going to just throw this out here because I did not add that many bombs. If if you do want to view it that way, by all means, just up the bomb count when we get to that point. And like I said, you're flying in one direction, and all of a sudden, this thing just takes off, and you don't have an engine actually functioning in the front, but now this separates and you're flying in one direction and now you're suddenly going in the other. That really doesn't work out for me very well. I'm just looking at it in my own limited brain space here, being able to try and reason that it just doesn't kind of work so well. So for me, when we get stats for this up here in a second, I don't have this actually separating. If that makes any sense as to why it would not separate, I hope it does. All right, so broken or lost pieces. The missiles, unfortunately, the missiles and the bombs and the laser cannons are small and easily lost. And that's all regrettable. Now, this has all been featured in the DIC line. We also have it in a comic book, as well as original art, uh, video games, more video games here, and then there's the commercial for it. So uh, it is kind of nice to see it get some recognition in different genres. There are no other known variations of this. This is the only variation that they have come up with. In South Korea, the Cobra Condor Z25 was released with packaging exclusively are exactly the same as the US version, except with Korean language stickers placed over the English. So keep that in mind. Now, this sold for $20.49. So this is actually a fairly good sized plane for that little bit of money. But you also have to think about it. That was a lot of money back then. So, as much as we like to think, well, yeah, it's, paying for a single GI Joe guy and for a little bit more than that, and I could have gotten a whole plane. So, all right, so as we look at the stats that I've created here, so the Cobra Condor Z25 is at Starfighter scale, has a length of I'm guessing here at 107 feet. I was kind of looking at thinking that this might be closer in size to the uh, Night Raven. So I really kind of put it at that same size, not knowing exactly how big this should be. This seems like it should be a significant sized fighter or bomber in that really real regard here. Okay, so that also makes it 32.6 meters long. We do have a crew of one pilot and one gunner. Um, Cargo capacity, I'm going to guess, is about 45 kilograms. I'm thinking personal cargo, not what you're storing in the bombs. Okay, so it is full coverage. We have a space of 8 because in my where I was kind of thinking, a lot of these planes could probably go out in space and fly out there. Uh, has an atmospheric flight of 1,050 kilometers an hour. Has maneuverability of 4D, a body strength of 60. Now, with this being a bigger bomber, actually, I'm thinking maybe I should knock that down about half because this may not be as maneuverable because if it's a bigger bomber at a longer length, for that reasoning, I'm going to drop it down to a 2, not thinking about it at the time. Um, it may not be as maneuverable as some of the other fighters. Let's see. I'll keep the body strength up there though. Heavy repeating cannon in the front. That's going to be at Walker scale. Let's see. Fire control is 2D. Damage is 70. There's no actual listing that I remember seeing for a cannon, but I'm going to guess it's going to be there. So I give it a heavier cannon there. We have 4 heat-seeking missiles, forward facing, starfighter scale. Fire control is 4D, and this is a damage of 7D. Again, that's at starfighter scale. We have 6 cluster bombs. I was counting it. I think it was 7 in there, but why don't we up that to 21? Because if we have 7 in the wings and 7 in here, I think it would be 21 in all. So I'm just going to up that to 21. Let's see. Of course, these are going to be at Walker scale. Fire control is going to be a 1D, and then damage is 4D. 100. It's going to be a 100-foot line of impact, and I should add feet. All right. Nope, there we are. Okay. And then in the back, we have 2 auto blasters, starfighter scale, fire control of 2D, and a damage of 4D. Actually, why don't we up that damage a little bit? Because if it's going to be 2 of them, then I think it should be 5D. All right. So, kind of a heavy bomber does have the rear gunner. I'm trying to keep other kind of the Joes from attacking it, and so on and so forth, or any other government from really being able to attack as well. Like I had mentioned, I'm leaving this as a whole bird all of its own, just being a heavy bomber. Um, Separating and then making it into 2 fighters just doesn't quite work out for me, for my little headspace. If that's something you want to do, I'll let you kind of figure out how you want to separate that and how you want that to work. But like I said, you're the rear plane is actually flying in one direction, and at some point you're going to break that in half, and then you'd have to kick that engine into a reverse and have it function that way, which engines don't typically do that. So for that reason alone, and the fact that the front really doesn't have any flight surface on it, it's essentially just a missile at that point. So I want to leave it all whole. Just have it as a heavy bomber. So that's the reasoning. That's my headspace in here. Um, I'm hoping that I come across as a rational person as to my justification why I'm saying that. Um, and we'll just kind of go from there. It is an interesting ship or interesting fighter. Some of the stats that I took this from for the initial is I was looking at this as a, if this is going to be more of a bomber, I kind of took the initial coming from um, the Rattler, but then it's like, okay, well we're going to be longer. Uh, we do have the same, that's where the heavy repeating blaster. If you notice, that's going to be the same. But I figured that's going to work. That if I put this up at Starfighter scale, that's going to be a 5D. So I could easily just change that and just say it's going to be Starfighter. All right, and then the damage goes down to a 5D, which is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Um, oops. Trying to get this right here, so it's there. We go. Okay, it's just the whole thing of having a base vehicle to go off of, and then where do we change things from there? We don't have as many extra missiles on here. We do have the 4 missiles, which is and I just start changing from there. I did want this to go faster than what the Rattler goes. Uh, so, like I said, I hit a vehicle and I take a base stat to say, this is like an upgraded version, and in my mind, this is kind of the replacement for the Rattler. Because now we've kind of gone on. GI Joe itself has now captured enough of the Rattlers that they're starting to field them. Let's start moving on from the Rattler. Let's start going on from there. But uh, if if you want to say in a traditional sense, you would have to have the long runway to get this up and off the ground. Fine. If we're taking this in a Star Wars sense that there was a crash landing, we have that technology. There's nothing saying we couldn't have the repulsor lift technology because that's what I was kind of talking about in some of the other aircraft that we have. So we could actually take off very similar to that of like the X-wings, the Y-wings, whatever in Star Wars. But now we're able to do that with our own aircraft here on Earth, whatever that GI Joe is on. Now, with that being said, it doesn't mean that you wouldn't want to have traditional landing gear in case that system seems to go offline for some reason. So this all still kind of fits. So just kind of throwing that out there as a little extra how I kind of view all of this, and hopefully you kind of get that sense here, and hopefully everything I'm doing makes sense to you. So with that, it's fun coming up with the stats. Sometimes it's a little challenging. This was at first I'm looking at this like, great, where do I fit this? How does this fit in? But then when I look at this as more of just a bomber, do I have another bomber available? Well, I have an attack bomber, which is what the Rattler is, but I'm just taking it from being an attack bomber and putting it more of just a straight bomber, and I kind of change things accordingly. We'll go a little bit faster. We're not going to kind of glide into combat, so on and so forth. So with that, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for visiting. It's always wonderful having you stop by. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you in the next video.